Hey, why don't we start right there? Why don't we talk about these stupid box jumps?
Yeah, you just want to dive right into it?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Like, so
Okay.
here's my question, Robert Killian.
Yeah.
How you explained it, like the jumping off instead of like the full rep and pausing, like not to be a jerk, but I think even I know that, right? Like, I know you got to like do the rep, right? So, like, why would you think that one was okay?
Well, I think mainly because that's been acceptable in the past as the fastest technique. And of course, it's a race, so you want to do the fastest you can do. And before it was just stressed that you needed to have full extension. It didn't necessarily state that it had to be on top of the box. And then you see it like TMX where you don't even need any extension. You just kind of jump over the box. So I think it's just this isn't the CrossFit Games. So if they specifically tell you, hey, you just need to have full extension, they don't specify when, then yeah, then you're gonna try to continuously go as fast as you can. And to be honest, it's harder. It jacks your heart rate up a lot more, and you're having to continuously, go faster. Whereas if you pause, you actually get to rest. I prefer it, but the problem is if you go to a race and you're sitting there pausing and you see someone come up, and there's a few videos out there. I think I sent you a link to Cassidy where she says that it's kind of like a pro tip, and you can see how much faster she did those box jumps than Orla. Then you're like, why am I doing the slow ones when this guy's just breezing through and crushing it? And in a stadium events, 10 to 15 seconds is literally different sometimes between first and third. It's a very tight race. And
Who?
yeah,
What? Explain to me how the process was, because by the way, I'm not a fan of form video form review after the fact either. So you agreement can
yeah.
be there, but I'm curious what the process was because this is the first time we've seen that where it wasn't a number discrepancy, it was a form discrepancy. So
Right.
did someone come up to you? Like, how did it go?
No, so I mean, we were kind of waiting around for a while because both Ryan Kent and I had a really early flight back to Denver, like around noon, and the award ceremony was scheduled for 10:30. So we're like just sitting there waiting around, and we just didn't have any updates. So we both left, popped smoke, went to the airport, and then I get a phone call, and I'm like, "Hey, we need to talk about your form." And I was like, "Okay, so what's up?" And they're like, "Well, the way you extend off the box."
Hang on. I just want to back up
Okay.
because there's been a lot of questions about this. Did you check the screen? Do you usually
Yeah,
check the
so I
screen?
actually went down and looked at the laptop, but this was about 11 o'clock because the Ascent Protein booth was like literally right in front of the results tent. And I scrolled all the way up to the top and the bottom and didn't see any penalties for any of the elites. But I guess because they were still reviewing footage at each station, they hadn't published them when I checked at 11, and I had to go for a flight. So I just didn't have time to sit there. Whether I got third, whether I got 10th, like it didn't matter. I wasn't going to be on the podium anyways. Ryan Kent wasn't either. I mean, we had early flights, we had to go. So I guess since I wasn't actually present, I did get bumped down to 11th, no questions asked. But they called as kind of like a courtesy, to let me know, hey, you received these penalties because in 5 of your reps, your form was improper. So at
Did
the beginning, I actually started doing a really good pause, but then Chris, the guy who was literally right behind me in fourth, came up and was literally smoking the box jumps exactly how I used to do them. So like for my last 5 reps, I'm like, well, dang, I need to catch back up. So we both got no reps for those 5. I think he only got 4, I got 5, and he dropped from like fourth to ninth or something.
did
Same thing happened to Ian Deardy. I can't really
did
pronounce his
Mike
name.
call you or did Kobo call you?
Mike, Koba wasn't there that I was aware of. I didn't see him the whole weekend.
So
But
this was from Mike, who's Kobo's boss. I'm just trying to get a clear,
yeah,
message of when people say they, like, okay, well, let's actually find out like how this is working because there's been so much going on this year, with Woodsy and everybody, and it's like, well, nobody told me or this guy talked to me, so it's like, okay, so
yeah, it was
Mike
Michael.
Morris,
Yeah,
who is the VP of product,
yeah,
and
and he usually isn't there officiating. I don't think I've ever seen
right,
actually officiating at a stadium event. But you see him a lot in Iceland and at the Ultra. He was doing the mandatory equipment checks. He was doing a lot of the, rule regulations briefings. But this is the first time I've ever seen him at a stadium event. And maybe that's where there is some room for subjectivity in the way, people conduct actual movements. And that's why it would be nice to have a video or something to explain the exact, form. Like they put out, I think last year, there's Ring the Bell episodes. And you can see, clearly Jody I or whoever was doing them do exact burpee repetitions or go through an obstacle and actually explain. And I think those help a lot because the rules are very black and white with failure modes. But again, there is room for subjectivity, as we've seen in a lot of the rulings, and that's where the officiating just needs to be, in my opinion, in a stadium race or a functional fitness station, in line with every other functional fitness or CrossFit or TMX, regardless. A counting station needs an official there to grade form and just to give you a no rep so that there's no penalty moving forward. You already know, hey, this happens all the time. You look at the CrossFit games, guys get no reps all the time, but there's just an official there. Hey, no rep, just do it again. It's not really a big deal. They maybe lose 2 seconds. What really sucks in a stadium race is when you get no reps and you get dinged 30 seconds, and it adds up to like 2.5 minutes on a 20-minute race. So if you have these guys there, there's no need for reviewing tape after the race, and they can easily just no rep you right there. You do the rep over. You have the same grader throughout. You don't have a weird camera angle maybe looking where, oh, I think that could have been proper form, but if you look at it from this angle, maybe it wasn't. It just all depends on placement, where they're catching those angles. And it's, I think the big key here is sport progression moving forward next year, because there is going to be a Spartan Stadium World Championship event. So I think they're trying to really, hone in on a lot of the events. But I mean, there's so many either, like box or push-ups. A lot of the guys don't fully lift their hands or even fully lock out. But again, it doesn't say that you need to lock out on a push-up. But like you said with the box jump, that's just like standard data. You should go all the way up until your arms extended versus, just coming up to enough to pick your chest off the ground and your hands. Technically, that's a rep. That's legal. So I think with if we're going to get into these movement stations, just hire, some officials for 2 hours. That's all you need them for. It's a 20-minute race. You can run all the elite men and women in about an hour and a half. And they just stand at these stations and they're responsible for, they follow you in, they look at your form. They don't count for you, you still count. But if they no rep you, boom, right then you got to do another rep. Problem solved.
Well, if you're looking at it that way, these are people, right? So they got to get there. They got to drive home. It's hard to hire anybody for a 2-hour job, right? You probably have to pay them for like 4 hours of their time.
Right.
But we've been asking this for just the burpee pits for elite waves for years. I mean, I honestly think top 10 is fine. And then everything else is cameras. And we know it's not perfect, but at least we can get the top 10 right. Because stadium would be a lot harder because you guys are all coming in so fast. But, a spear throw burpee pit, I can easily manage 2 people, right? Like looking at that guy that comes in and that guy that comes in. Hey, get your butt down. Hey, that doesn't look right. You know what I mean? And you have a few of those people, you could manage an elite field of men and women without too much difficulty. The question is, the resistance to spend whatever this dollar amount is to make it happen. And you just keep telling us, well, we're doing our best and we're doing our best.
And I mean, the video format does make sense in certain aspects, but I mean, if it just looks at, sport progression, what are they trying to accomplish? And how much are they willing to put into it? I think with the new elite wave announcement, I think that's going to alleviate a few problems right there, because you're not going to have as many people per se in those waves anymore, where they're going to have to review tape from some random person, that usually isn't supposed to even be there, but they have to review it anyway, just because they're in the elite wave and they want to have, official results. I think, Michael told me he went through 100 different people, doing box jumps. That's a lot. That's why it took him like 3 hours to look through the tape, to go through slow-mo and all that. And that's just, I mean, that's one person doing the job. So either they just need to change the, structure where they have more officials reviewing tape, more cameras, more angles. And then, I mean, I don't know. I'm a pro athlete. I'm not, working for Spartan, but, yeah, it's one of those things that's dynamic. I mean, we're trying to figure it out as we go, and make we're still a youngish sport, I guess.
I agree, but this is an argument that there's so many variables in an obstacle race anyway, right? We're not a 400-meter run, right? Like there's so many things that come up that like, oh my God, that never came up before. But the things that are in Spartan's control, like let's spend a few $100s at least, Robert, for the U.S. National Series, right? Let's say it isn't for all 60 events, right? Not all 68 events, but definitely National Series, championship races. You pay some people and start making this thing happen, because again, it's just, I mean, when you explain to I was talking to some people on a running podcast, and we're telling them, like, do you know that the top man and woman for Tahoe make 20 grand and second place makes 15 grand? They were like, you mean running races have no money, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it's a much bigger industry. So the point is, like, we're going to give away real money. We got to start throwing a few dollars at refs for these things.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, what was I getting at with, hold on, I just lost my train of thought there. When you talk about dollar signs and the money, I was just kind of like, that is actually, a pretty good amount. But we're still not at the level, CrossFit Games at 300 or
no, of course
Ironman
not.
Kona 250. But
I'm saying the money is there. Let's invest a little in getting it right, because it's so important, right? And we keep having these like very silly, things that come up at almost every big race where there's any kind of attention. I mean, this race, this wasn't a national series or whatever, but anytime you've got at least a couple pro teamers in the top, people are going to be paying attention.
Yeah. So, okay, I remember what I was going to say. So I think, and I'm not trying to solve all of Spartan's problems, but they do have, in my opinion, some ways they could go about this. If they have SGX certification, a lot of times they're either doing obstacle specialist or an SGX certification class in conjunction with a race weekend. They like to do that. They like to stack on like 20 things in a weekend so they can get the best bang for the buck, whether it's Spartan X leadership, whether it's SGX, whether it's an ultra the same weekend as a beast. They just keep adding on, or a trail as the same weekend as the ultra or the beast, all three. So they're really trying to get the most out of their venues. Why can't they easily just plan those SGX certified instructors around the same weekend, let's say as a national championship? Maybe that's part of their certification, is they have to go out and give that time out on the course to be an official for 2 hours. And because, we have a lot of SGX coaches that need to get recertified, or currently it doesn't count. Let's say if they're calling CECs, continuing education certificates or credits. So if you go out and do a athletic type class related to, physical training of athletes, then you actually get a recertification for that next year. You don't have to go to, let's say, an obstacle specialist.
I got to put you on hold one second.
Another credit, but
this is the holiday week. My children are like, I don't know if you can hear all that, but just hang on.
All right, yeah, no worries. I got kids too.
So my son has a friend over, and they're watching the new Karate Kid show, and so now they're doing it. But I'm like, do that on the front porch, not next to my office.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see what happens if Spartan, changes. I actually did have some really good feedback from the video I posted online. I actually had Michael reach out to me and say, hey, you made some really valid points. And honestly, back in the day, I don't think a lot of people know this, but I almost lost the entire stadium series over one missed spear throw because I had to do 30 burpees. And even though I finished second place in the race, Isaiah had a big enough gap. He had like a minute and a half, because you guys know back then, the way they used to score races was your time back, not necessarily your place. So my biggest argument, so I actually had to do another race just to make up those points. But I was like, why are we doing 30 burpees for a 20-minute race? And I was able to get Joe DI and Spartan change everything to 15 reps. That was a huge, like in my opinion, step forward in how the process works, where you figure out, you talk to the athletes, you figure out, hey, does this actually make sense? And you make the change, and everybody was like, this is great, this makes sense. So I think they're going to look at some more of these type of situations and hey, this makes sense, let's make a change. And whether it's going down to 15 seconds or implementing those reps. Mike actually told me he really likes that idea. So
because they hadn't thought of it prior to the end of 2019.
Well, I think there's just so many different people, like you're saying, there's so many different people who are working in different positions and different parts of the country, depending on the region. There's not a lot of continuity, even though there is, you always see Steve Hammond out there, or you see Robert Coble. There's only a few select people, but maybe they're not at the races where these problems are happening. They maybe not hear it through the different department meetings. But no, I think, yeah, maybe it has been discussed before, and maybe this wasn't a possibility. I don't know, funding, or they have to come up with a new budget code now, whatever it is. You know how businesses operate. They need to figure out a way to pay people in a different pot of money. It has to go through. There's a lot of pieces that you don't, like, even for me getting paid sometimes, they're like, oh, we can't pay you because that has to come out of this person's budget. And I'm like, oh, like, so now I got to talk to this person, but
Right. And listen,
it's one of those things.
And I understand that. And I actually defend Spartan a fair amount. People on the internet say all kinds of crazy things, and, a lot of moving pieces. It's a massive company, and they can't get everything right. And they are doing really good with a lot of things, but something like this, where they specifically talk about how important it is to them. And, Watson is like, always like, this is going to be amazing, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And then when it comes down to execution, it's wonky. So let's just take, for example, and I hope this isn't beating a dead horse, but, when you got on the plane to leave because the awards hasn't happened yet, that's not unheard of. Like, oh my God, they're always so on time with the award ceremonies, right? Like, right. That's not your experience.
No.
And they were super upset in Greece when, I forgot you were actually there too. When Nicole and Ryan weren't there, because they weren't sure exactly when it was going to be, and they went to bed. And like I said, I think that was fine, especially since you didn't personally ask them. You just assumed, quote unquote, they would make it. And they're like, oh, this is the most important thing. And I'm like, well, it's the most important thing. How is it late 80% of the time? So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think it was like 30 minutes delayed in Greece. But I think it goes back to them trying to be more, I guess, strict on rule enforcement. And there is a rule in the book that says you must attend the award ceremony to get your money. And I think that's what they're kind of trying to harp on, is just I think especially at that venue, because it was a big cultural type world championship. Have you ever seen a podium celebration like they do in Greece? I mean, honestly, it's out of control.
No, it was great.
It was insane.
It because you have all the countries, because of the stakes. Yeah. I would say there's an argument to be made that you don't need one the first night, because those races don't count anyway. Like, you don't win any extra money or anything. You rank them, of course, but then you do the big one on the last night. That to me makes more sense. But I do, trust me, I can see both sides. It was an embarrassment for Spartan because that's their pro team. But again, they weren't on the phone with them like at 4 or 5 and being like, well, hey, let's set this up. We're gonna do this at 7:30. Make sure you meet here. They just like, where's everybody? And it's like, well, you gotta own
that's
that
the thing too that we're lacking. We don't have a pro team manager. I've been trying to beat this dead horse forever. I mean, we always have a guy who has 10 other jobs that's deemed like this is like his additional duty, like his shit job that he doesn't want to do. And then that's how they treat it sometimes. I'm just being frank, like nothing against them. Like, we're really important the first 2 months of the year when it's time to sign a contract. And then once we're signed, it's like on our own to manage everything. And we are, big boys and girls. We're grown-ups, we're adults. But like you said, at the same time, it'd be nice, and we did have a schedule. That was published. We had it on the back of our little athlete card. So there are a lot of like ways you can go on either side, but I think it would, like you said, just that serve as some reminders, because a lot of times, like, and Ryan Atkins and Aaron and Nicole can all attest, we've got to do a ton of interviews before an event. We've got to do a ton of meet and greets, and some of that stuff just gets lost in translation. Or we deem, hey, like, I've been sucked dry this entire day. I haven't had a meal. I would rather miss this and have my dinner and be prepared for my race tomorrow than necessarily go to this event because I've had so many obligations throughout the day. So better time management and a dedicated person. And we actually had that in Tahoe. And this new guy, Nathan, that was helping us out. And he, would send us email reminders. He would send us a schedule right before the event. And I think they're working on that. And even when I did this Spartan X leadership thing this past weekend, this girl Jessica Holland, she's kind of newish to Spartan. She sent me this massive, like, detailed, like, hey, this is your hotel. This is when you need to be, where you need to be. And I was like, wow, can I get one of these for the pro team events? Because she was just on it. Like,
well, it's called being a professional sport. I mean, like, honestly. And, Coble, who I spoke with, and again, that's exactly the point, right? It's a money question. It's whose job is it to do this? Not someone that has 7 other jobs. It's actually dedicating a person. And I know that you or someone told me, Woodsy told me that Joe DI actually was really good at that. And, that's what Coble said. Coble comes from the biking world, and he said that's what happens is a company comes to you and says, we need the athletes for these 5 things, this interview, this panel, this briefing, this, thing. And they're like, well, okay, my guy's got to eat. My guy's got to get his run in. My guy's got to sleep. So they can't make that one. They can't make that one. And before, I can already hear the internet haters going like, oh, poor pro athletes, they have to do this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, listen, just like any job, you can't be everywhere at all times, and you do need to sleep and eat. And I personally saw Atkins and Nicole and I almost said Ryan, but his name isn't Ryan. Aaron get asked to be on an additional shoot, and they literally didn't come back all day in Greece. Like, this German team just confiscated them. And
I was there for the evening session, and I had a very similar experience in Iceland.
Okay, right.
And even before Tahoe, I don't even know how I won, honestly, because for the 2 days before the race, I was working 8-hour days. I literally had 8 hours of work both days. And I think that's maybe why I won, because I deemed the race was the most relaxing thing I did that entire weekend. It was where I could just be out in my element. And I don't know if you watched the live feed stream, but I was just focused on it because literally I was like, I'm free. I could just race, I don't have, and granted, I love doing stuff for my sponsors and for Spartan because I understand full circle, what it means to be a professional athlete and to progress the sport. And that's your job. Like you're saying, you got to do all these things at once. And it's a balance like anything else. And it's,
and by the way, I realize I am part of that equation, right? I'm going to pull you guys whenever I can.
For media. Yep.
Right. Hey, just 5 minutes. And of course it's always going to be more. And so I've been part of that quote unquote problem, but that's the point, is that Spartan needs to give you that professional. Spartan needs to give you that person that takes care of you and works with the sponsors, the production team, right? There's just a lot of stuff going on, and it means, writing an extra paycheck a year to somebody.
Yeah. And it's just really hard to do literally like the day before the race. Like, that's what it's always at, like Media Fest, or this year in Jacksonville, Media Day is always like the day before your biggest race, when you need to be doing all these things as an athlete. And it's like something we just got to figure out, I guess, and maybe see if we can have a discussion. That's the thing, like, we do these meetings, and I think, a lot of the topics are social media or marketing, when, it would be beneficial also to have some meetings about other things.
Well, I've heard about this. I've heard about this athlete committee. Is there one? Are you on it?
Not for Spartan specifically. I mean, the last time I heard it was headed by Kevin Gelati, and I don't know if he's still doing it or he backed down, but that was last year, or past year. I don't know. I know there was like some controversy after I guess, yeah, there's controversy. What was it, Jacksonville, and the trust thing, like who actually decided that? And I think, I personally saw David Magida and Michael Morrison and David kind of huddling, but I didn't know, and actually, no, it was myself, Ryan Kempson, Ian Husick. We're not on an athlete committee, but I think we were there kind of like 10 minutes. That's kind of a harsh penalty. Won't you just maybe 5 or something, trying to at least cut it in half. But I think, to just understand, a lot of the officials, a lot of the staff members don't understand what it's like to race and what it's like to have that much time docked from you, because you personally understand how much effort you put into that. And to have another athlete make those decisions kind of makes a little bit more sense in some aspects. That's not another competitor of yours. You know what I mean? Because then it's like, oh yeah, give him 10-minute penalty. Why not? But if you kind of understand as an athlete, hey, maybe that only warranted a 1 minute or no penalty or a rule change, then yeah, let the athletes decide, because they're the ones racing. They're the ones it's impacting the most. So I think it is important for an athlete committee, and like you said, to publish, hey, who's on this committee? What are their credentials? And a lot of times, like anything else, you said there's only, enough of time that you have to give during a day. And maybe there's people that don't want to just give out their time. They're stacked, or there aren't any people out there that are qualified and willing to give their time unless they're paid or something. So then it's I don't know, maybe, we could have something in there as, being part of the pro team, because we have a lot of, I think that was the thing that Rakuten came in and they wanted to, help support Spartan financially to establish a professional OCR league of sorts. So that's how we expanded the pro team to 200, 250 members. Well, maybe as, a duty of being a pro team member, you have, the duty to serve on a committee.
If elected, right? If elected, exactly. There's this many things available.
And we do that within USAOCR. We have, an athlete committee. But that's the thing, the other big brands aren't wanting to use the governing body of obstacle course racing, recognized by the U.S. Olympic Committee under the Ted Stevens Sports Act, to do their job.
Right. Well, now we have to shift.
That's a big one in itself.
All right, but let's. Okay, so
I feel like
no. What's that?
So that's a whole nother podcast.
No, but I think it's great, honestly. If you've got some time to discuss that, because first of all, I brought this up. Why am I yelling? I don't need to yell. We're right here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I get very excited. You mentioned the time difference for the point series, which I brought up in a recent podcast, and I honestly couldn't remember. So at one point, it was 300, 299, 298. But before that, it was percentage of time finished, right?
Yep.
Not just for stadium, but for all of it?
All races, yes.
So what was
every series, every event, correct.
So if Hobie Call came in first and beat you by 2 minutes,
I would get 250 points, even though I was second. So he would put a 50-point gap right there. Because, right. Technically it's pretty legit, that he beat you by that much. He should get some type of bonus. And I think the way they did it this year is they kind of took that point system, but just implemented it for the top 5. And then after that, it's just one, so that you do get more points for finishing first, second, third, or fourth. But again, the time back difference doesn't matter.
Are you in favor of all 5 races for a championship series, or do you
Absolutely
think
not?
Can drop? You'd like to be able to drop one?
100%. It just makes sense. If an athlete's sick, injured, misses a flight, just anything, has an off race because of all these variables, or we saw it this year. There's 3 different massive series: stadium, mountain, U.S. championship, and some athletes would like to do them all. And now there's an ultra series. So there's a few crazies out there that aren't able to do a specific distance or series because there's overlapping dates. We saw it this year. Even with Ryan Kent, he similarly with me in 2017, he won 4 of the 5 races, but he finished second in the series because he missed 1 race. That similarly would have happened to me in 2017. I won 4 out of the 5 races, but I had that penalty for the spear, came in second. So I actually had to go back out and race again and I didn't even need to beat Isaiah. I just needed to be within 10 seconds of him because that was how many seconds I needed to get the points I needed. So then you're just playing like a math game. And I think you should be able to drop a race, absolutely. So that, one, you can compete at more events. Two, it just leaves a little bit room for error. And I think it was more competitive that way. If you look at the standings from this year versus other year, top 10, you see a lot of athletes who aren't in the top 10 that have always been there. And I think it just, in my opinion, David Watson is always trying to progress more competitiveness. And I think doing all 5 races in every single series is making it less competitive, but more specific for an athlete to be able to choose which race they want to do. But there again, you're going to go where most of the money is because you have to make a living. So you're not going to see a ton of people going to stadium because they don't throw a lot of money in it. And I would be very upset next year if we see a stadium world championship that doesn't pay out as much as Spartan Trail that has no obstacles. This is an obstacle racing. This is an obstacle racing sport.
Something tells me you see this. Something tells me you already see this happening. Yeah,
that's a lot of money at Spartan Trail in December.
Right.
More money than the stadium series. In one race, then you would win for the entire series to going for 5 events.
So what if I told you, well, that's a separate deal. Ultra's giving that money. Ultra the shoe, not Ultra the word. Yeah. What if that's going to be there?
Find some more sponsors for stadiums.
Right.
Stadium, in my opinion, I'll tell you the truth. I love that format more than any other, more than Beast, more than Tahoe. I love stadium races. I think they're exciting. They're fast. They're easier to train for. You only train for like a 2-mile race with some functional fitness. They're more obstacle dense, so the obstacles matter more. Like, I'm a huge fan of the stadium series, but I can't race it because it's not the U.S. National Championship. There's conflicting dates, and the prize money's not there. So, they just got to find, some bigger sponsors to just focus on the stadiums. And man, the infrastructure's there. You can do a really exciting live feed in like 20 minutes. We're not sitting there watching me run up a mountain for 30 minutes on ESPN. Like, we don't see as many obstacles. I think it's more exciting to see that.
But then how would we hear Kevin Donahue say that Ryan Kempson's really good at bushwhacking 10 times?
No, that's another side of Spartan is the really good, thick bushwhacking or trail running or off trail running or savageness that Norm used to like. Norm and Woody does a good job of it, and even Steve. But I think the problem we've seen now is since the live feed and since the formation of Spartan Trail, they're very good at meshing those courses together or taking out the bushwhacking and the really hard climbing and elements because they can't get those on camera. The rabbits can stay with us for a little bit, but I think that I would never want to see that kind of clouding what we used to have, in Palmerton and some of the really hard, tough courses, just, alternating those so that they can catch a glimpse of us on the TV. That's kind of a bummer, but that's where the stadium race format doesn't have to change. It's such a small venue and they already have everything set up that they can easily film it.
What about this new big money Canadian series? Will you be doing that?
Yeah, actually, I was like, man, I can go up and be the Canadian national champion, only have to do 3 races and win about the same amount of money as I would in the United States. I'm like, that's pretty legit. And actually, I went up to Whistler for some Tough Mudder races and Primal Quest, adventure race. I really love the terrain up there. Like, there's some, beautiful places. I've never done any of the events on the Montreal or Ontario side except for, Blue Mountain when I was able to go to OCR Worlds. But that definitely, has me thinking about what my goals are for next year and what races I want to do. And I think I am going to change the focus depending on when Spartan's going to announce where the World Championships are. But knowing that the North American Championships are Tahoe now, I'll definitely focus on that, and that'll be a big race for me. But outside of that, I don't necessarily know if Spartan Race World Championships is going to be a massive race that I focus on next year. Maybe I want to win the Ultra. Maybe I want to go out and do something at OCR Worlds. But
it's hard. But it's hard.
So
Right, but it's hard when you're the reigning champ. Even though it's the second title, you are the reigning champ. I feel like it's hard not to do that, right?
no, I'll go there and I'll be there, but I just don't like Iceland. Iceland this year wasn't my focus. I still went, I still did it, I still finished 10th, and I didn't race 9 hours of the event. Like that's insane. Like I was going at a fast enough pace to try to win $1 million. And like John Albin last year, once I fell off, I was like, I want my season to be over. I'm done. I didn't even want to do this race, and I did 55 miles. I did 25 miles past when my knee was about to explode. And it's just you gotta decide, what your goals are, and really not let too many people influence that. And that's
I
hard
actually,
to do.
Killian, not Killian, Atkins had said, made a joke about how like Hobie and Cody like have just like shown up to the last race of the year and done well. And I was thinking of that, of like, what's the minimum you could do to qualify for the North American Championship? Win that and win Worlds, and that's 32 grand, right? You might win.
That's a great idea.
Without killing
and
yourself.
it leaves
Without killing yourself all year.
And it leaves you with these long training blocks that you can actually prepare for a specific distance. That's the hardest thing, is like a lot of these races that I used this year, I was either like on a 60-mile week and exhausted, or using them as my threshold workouts. I didn't care whether I won or not. Like my biggest focus was Tahoe. And after Tahoe, it was the same. Like I haven't put in the miles to do the ultra really well. Like I've been running on 35 to 55-mile weeks max, and I can show anyone my Strava and verify that. Like I don't have the miles to be sick. That was all mental. But you get to the point where I found it, 55 miles. That's how far my mentality will get me with zero training for that specific distance. And I need to specifically do longer volume, or longer weeks, more volume at a slower pace to really do well at that format. And maybe that's something I want to focus on next year. I just don't know yet. Like it's all checks and balances, right? You got to weigh out like how much is it going to cost me? How much time do I have to train? What other events do my sponsors and does Spartan want me to be at? There's a lot that goes into it. So it's just, and it takes me a while to figure that out. Everyone's like, what's your race season going to be like next year? And all these people are already posting theirs. And I see Ian Husick doing these little wizard formulas on his Instagram about how you should pick your races. And I'm like, I usually don't pick till like the end of January, or almost like obviously February. I'll be at the first race because it's pretty easy to train for a 5K. You don't have to do it. I can train for a 5K in my off season and feel like I'm not overtraining. And after that, I really don't know yet, honestly. That's really the only race that I have on my schedule. I'll be in Jacksonville. And outside of that, I really don't know. Like you said, maybe I just focus on the minimum requirements. But I will say one thing. I do want to win Greece. I didn't realize, and I don't even think Nicole realized, how big that prize purse was. Nobody did. We were just like, what are these big checks? Like, this is insane. And maybe that's, bad on us not doing the research. But aside from that, I really like the format. And now that I know the course and how to train for it, and know that I need to do some slackline practice, like a lot, I can actually go out there and I think do really well at that race, and maybe add that as another big world championship event. Because we saw the Europeans are like, there were guys who legitimately, like myself, trained for Tahoe, just trained for that race, and it showed. Like it was a different field that we don't always see, and I like that. I think it made it more exciting, and like I said, it lit a fire into me to want to focus more on that race next year, arrive a little bit earlier, train for those specific 3 events back to back. And I've heard some rumors they might change the format to do the beast first. So then again, I'm waiting to hear some more announcements to decide how I'm going to train and what races I'm going to do.
Yeah, so this got brought up, and I thought, how is this not brought up sooner? I love the idea as the trifecta being the real world championship, right? A real test of all your skills, and it doesn't have to be up some freaking mountain with all this elevation. Do it at a place like Greece or somewhere else where there's just, I think I was there. I thought it was super exciting. I think
dude, my calves and my Achilles were on fire because I've never had to run that fast, that flat, like all year. And that was like, there was nothing else that was sore on my body. Like going into Sweden, like the week after, that's all I did. I had to go to like get massages and ice my calves and my Achilles just from, and I felt great. And I'm really glad about that. Like I haven't been running like that in a while. I've only been, focusing on up and downhill. And I'm excited to see what I can do in 2020 if I can get some of that leg fast running speed that I used to have back in 2016, 2017.
But what do you think about making that a world championship instead of a 15-mile mountain race?
Yeah, no, I think it gives you more room to do those three formats, right? And to add up your kind of your time back. So we did see some guys that had, some issues with a spear throw or with failed obstacles, but they still made that time up on Sunday. Like, that's what I thought was pretty cool, like, honestly. And that, you can make some mistakes but still have some time. But we also saw, and what I didn't really plan for, is there were some guys that were totally sandbagging during the sprint and the super just because they knew the beast was going to be the end all be all, the deciding factor. So as long as they can minimize 1 to 2 minute gap and just really give an easy effort, because your placement doesn't matter, it's all about time back. So if you could just minimize
but why would you not think why would you not think that's a strategy going into the race?
I just didn't implement it. That's what I'm saying. I didn't realize that. Like, I have the mentality, I just go as hard as I can out the gate until I start to fade. And if I have enough to hold everyone off, then I win. But
haven't you done, I don't know, you've never done a race like with heats before?
Yeah, no, but not an OCR. I mean, we do stadium race. Yeah, it's a time trial. So technically I could start in the second wave.
No, I just mean like anywhere where there's like a heat and then a final. Like, I just assume most people understand the concept of.
Yeah, I understand it. But I never, I guess I've never really sandbagged because I've always been on that like cusp, where I'm not going to win, but I need to give my best effort just to qualify.
Right.
And, all right. I don't know.
All right. So let me ask you about this USAOCR stuff, because your name was trotted out there early on when they did the first championship or the first two at Spartan races, and people thought, oh my God, this thing's too Spartan. So they said, fine, we're not going to do it at a Spartan. We're going to do it somewhere else. But then I wasn't sure if you were still attached to it. So I know they had a rough year and they didn't have a big turnout at Black Swamp. So what is your current understanding of where it is? And what's your role? And what is your role? What's your job?
Yeah, so right now I stepped down. I was the chairman of the board, and now that's Heather Galnick. She's heading that up, and I am the male athlete committee or athlete representative. So I'm essentially speaking on behalf of the athletes for USAOCR if there is an issue, or like when when we deem what should we have as penalties at the races, I kind of give them the feedback. I'm like, hey, we should do at least a running penalty, even if you carry something, 2 to 3 times the amount of time it would take you to successfully complete that obstacle. So then we have to go out, test how long it takes for the fastest or the medium, and then kind of add it from there. Or, hey, this is an obstacle course race. The best rule that I think we've implemented and talked about as athletes in the elite wave, if you fail more than 3 obstacles, you're completely disqualified. So this essentially alleviates what we saw in Greece, where someone can do 700 burpees and essentially do the obstacles in the laps faster because it doesn't take
Iceland?
them.
You mean
Iceland? Yeah, or sorry, Iceland. No, it was Sweden. No, it was Sweden.
You said Greece.
I said Iceland. Sweden. Where as long as it took you to get your whole punch out, to have them punch it, to slow down for the obstacle, to do the obstacle, you could literally just run through it and do 15 burpees at the end faster in the exact same time, because you're not breaking your form, you're not slowing down, you're not waiting in a line, essentially all that stuff. But yeah, I think with USAOCR, so currently the biggest struggle that I think we've.
Do you want to say hi to Emma?
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
This is what happens when we do this on holiday weeks. Usually it's my sons who end up on the show. Just say hi. Hang on, I'm gonna ask you a question.
Yeah.
Emma,
what's your favorite obstacle? I know you've done some races, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
She's not, dude. She is not into OCR anymore. My boys are, but she's kind of over it. She's like preteen. You know what I mean? Okay. Like she's all about that Instagram life.
Oh yeah, my daughter's just discovered kids YouTube, and it's hard to break that.
Is there a separate YouTube now?
Yeah, it's just kids YouTube. So there's not as like you don't have to worry about the bad content and stuff. Pretty cool.
Emma, how many subs do you have on YouTube?
1,180.
What? That's more than I got.
That's legit.
It's legit. Dude, I'm telling you right now, if I could go back and do it all over again, I would just buy like really expensive videoware and just film my kids playing with toys all day and post it on YouTube.
Dude,
I mean,
that's
millions of followers, millions. It's insane. Like even watching my kids watch it, like it sucks me in sometimes, and I'm like, why am I watching this? It's just this kid playing with toys.
right.
But yeah,
All
man,
right.
I'm telling you,
I,
Ryan's got it made.
I hate that
Of course,
kid.
another Ryan.
He's weird.
He's would you say he's cringy, Emma?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely cringy. Luckily, they're old enough now that they're out of that phase.
Right.
They're on to she's into like the beauty fashion blogger things,
Cool.
which like how old are your kids?
6 and 4.
Okay, so and you have at least one girl, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we definitely have to start thinking about that stuff. Quick parent corner, like what values are important,
Yes.
kind of thing. But we kind of keep coming back to like she sees our values, right? She sees what's important to us and us living it, and we think that's what's the most important because we can't really, don't watch that girl because she wears too much makeup. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
All right, back to USAOCR.
USAOCR. I think the biggest thing that we're struggling with right now, and we have bi-weekly meetings, and there's a lot of stuff that we're trying to push. But again, the brands don't want to give up their elite race or their process that they've already indoctrinated to have another agency come in and officiate at their events. But again, it could solve a lot of these problems because you're having a third-party company, just like USA Triathlon does for sanctioned events. And then you have a established point series that's not biased on what races or what events you're doing, just Spartan or Tough Mudder or Adventurely LLC races or anything like that. But yeah, I think I tried, and like you said, I met with Adrian, we had a letter of agreement, and he just came back where a lot of his other brands that help him put on his events were like, we don't want to partner with anything that is even remotely considered with Spartan, and Killian's on the pro team. So that was the closest we got, was having, one of the Adventurely LLC national or North American championships being sanctioned by USAOCR as an official national championship. So the way sport works, just for a quick tangent, the U.S. Olympic Committee gets to establish under this Ted Stevens Sports Act passed into law what is deemed an official sport. Like that's how it works. They are the law. So there are sports that are extremely successful that aren't under the Olympic Committee. I mean, we see it every day. NFL, CrossFit, a lot of the X Games. That's why the X Games were formed, because they feel the Olympics are a money-oriented business, which is very correct, versus supporting and taking care of the athletes who are committing, destroying their bodies for the entertainment of others, at the expense of what? Like they're not necessarily getting compensated, but it's the highest level of competition. So as an athlete, that drives you because you want to say that you're the best of the best, or you've won, an Olympic medal. And again, there's a lot of people who don't go back and qualify properly, even though they're gold medalists potentially. They might miss it in the qualifications, not even go back. So I think that's where world championships and other big sports can still be successful, because we still want to compete outside of the Olympics. It's not the end all be all for me. And like I would love to see a format of OCR in the Olympics, but much like triathlon, I don't know that it would even look like a Spartan race or a Tough Mudder, or if it would be more like an American Ninja Warrior course, because that's what they show on TV, and that's what the Olympic Committee is going to associate more with viewership for national broadcast, which is where they get their $9 billion check, every 4 years for television rights. So it's like we're trying to just establish ourselves as a sport, just get our foot in the door, get a format that's approved by the Olympic Committee. And just like Spartan Race has been doing it, there's a lot of criteria that you have to meet, right? You have to hold a race, you have to have official timing, you have to have rules, you have to have regulations. After the race, you got to have a podium, you got to have a flags present, you got to play the winning country's national anthem on the podium. There's like this massive checklist. And if you don't do any of that at a single event, then you don't actually get credit for it, if you're looking to be like, hey, we've, signed a petition, we've done all these events, they met this criteria, now can we be considered as a sport? You kind of got to meet all those. And we're trying, and I think, we're under modern pentathlon right now, so we're not our own sport, so we're kind of blanketed under another sport, just like, when snowboarding came along, it was under USA skiing because it's a similar type winter sport. So like modern pentathlon is a multi-sport. They thought it would be a best fit to house OCR, and they agreed upon it, and it kind of worked.
So I don't think Olympics are end all be all either. So explain to me why you think it is important, right? Because
Well, I think it's important because once it's deemed an official sport, and so that's how basketball is popular in high school, and like team sports and college and stuff. We can't necessarily hold these events at a younger level, let's say at a high school or at schools, until it's like an official sport, and there's certain regulations that are abiding under that sport. And I think that younger people are the future of our sport. So if we could, that's where we're getting all these adults and all these people who like to play in the mud. But if we got more of the youth involved, they do have kids races. They do have they're having a kids world championship, I think, for the second year. So they are bridging that gap and trying to build the future of the sport with the youth. But I think it's important, like we were saying, to have a not-for-profit governing body. That is the biggest thing for sport regulation. And that's what is difficult because it is a not-for-profit organization.
But what if I said that most people don't want that?
Yeah, then it's just going to remain exactly like it is, like the CrossFit Games. But that's a funny thing is USA Triathlon. Have you ever done an ITU draft legal Olympic qualifying triathlon? Nobody has, unless you're trying to go to the Olympics. It's a format that is held maybe twice a year. So I think it's nice that we're not trying to necessarily say that there's going to be a different format out there for elites to qualify, but we're all out there. We could still be successful like the CrossFit Games or like other sports that don't want to be in the Olympics, but for some reason there's a stigma that if you're not deemed, or you haven't been an Olympic sport, it's not for real. But
yeah, see,
it's just crazy to me. It blows my mind. I'm making more money than Olympic athletes.
Well,
I don't have a problem saying that because
that's a whole other conversation.
Is successful,
Right, but I'm saying that the proof is in the pudding, right? USAOCR has not had a ton of success so far, and there's a million factors, but at the end of the day, if people fucking wanted it, they would sign up and be a part of it. And so far they're not. And maybe that's partly because of leadership and structure. Maybe part of that's apathy. But
the thing is, we're not supposed to put on races. You don't see the governing body of USA Triathlon putting on races. That's not our job. We're there to officiate, and that's where I think
but the races, but
that's the only way we can get money, because people don't want to pay their extra $10 for a year, even just to get some discounts on some products. They would rather us sanction and hold our own event. But dude, Spartan has been doing that for 10 years, and they've just now gotten to the point where we are, and they're trying to have us stand up in 1 year and get obstacles, officials, land. It's hard to put on.
No, dude, I know, but I'm saying that it's unfortunate that the races pushed back on the deal with Adrian, and maybe you can revisit it. Maybe you can revisit it now. Maybe you can revisit it in a year. But because that is currently the recognized, air quotes, event that people in the sport seem to recognize.
For sure, but I think the disconnect there is, even though they deem themselves an independent race, and I have
they're a for-profit company. I get it.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that though. They're just it's called.
No, trust me. They know. But the point is that that seems like the most logical step, right?
Oh, for sure.
Just like you can't keep, I don't know if this is a good analogy or not, you can't keep a Facebook group alive that doesn't want to be kept alive, right? Some people are like, oh, well, let's restart it. It's nothing happened. So if people don't want it, it's not going to happen. And currently, the closest thing we have is Adrian's events. So it probably would come out of there. But
World OCR is actually very much so more successful in Europe, and all the races and the federations outside of the United States.
But I heard some wonky things there too, about the Italian team. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, that's their federation. Yeah, I have talked to Luca and Serena and
Luca and Serena. They were very upset when I talked to them.
Yes. But I think that's the thing is, I mean, we're having a, world OCR championship in Sochi this year. So, I mean, but that's the thing, like how many of these events can you have during the same month and expect to get all the top athletes at? That's, in my opinion, why USAOCR hasn't been successful, because we're always trying to plan our races around the other championships, and people don't want to go to them because they have to travel. It throws off their training. There's not enough money, etc. Blah blah.
But that's the thing. That's what it takes. It takes real commitment. Nobody went to Adrian's event the first couple of years, but now it's always going to be on their calendar. Will you be in Sochi?
I don't know if I can get a visa, but if I can, maybe. Like I have with my military status, it might be a little difficult. The same reason why the top Russian guy can't come race Tahoe. So I don't know if I can go, but I don't know.
Is that why Sergey didn't race in Tahoe? Because they won't let him?
Yeah, he's never gotten a visa. He's applied for 2 years and they won't give him a visa.
Oh, that's right. I talked to him and he said it was a whole thing. I actually talked to him in Greece. Let me ask you a question. Is it necessary to do the national anthem at every single race in the United States before the race starts?
Yeah, I think every sport does that. And I think before, I think once a day, but not before every single wave. But yeah, I think one time before the event.
Even when you're going to do it at the end with the podium.
Well, you don't know that an American's going to. Well, I guess if it's a U.S. event. Well, actually, I don't know. That's what's so weird. So they call it the U.S. National Series. Technically, by the Olympic Committee, to actually be called a national championship, you have to have a U.S. passport. So the fact that I could go up to Canada and win the Canadian National Championship should not be that way for a sport. Just like Ryan Atkins shouldn't be able to come down and win the U.S. National Series. They should call it the U.S. Championship Series or the U.S. whatever. But to call it a national, that means you're from that nation and you're competing for your country to be the national championship.
Right, just like the European Championship is.
Yeah, I can't go race and just like North American, you have to be from North America.
Okay,
So I think it should be similar.
Okay, so what do we do with? Oh, you froze on me. You still there? Oh no! Damn it! What the fuck happened? Fuck me running. Hello?
Okay, I got you back.
Okay. Okay. Who should Rhea be able to race in both the European and American series?
Well, yeah, if it's called just the U.S. Championship Series, but that's the thing right now. They call it the National Series, but it's just a name. It doesn't mean you're the national champion because that's established at the North American Championship.
Right, but
so
I'm saying
at the Championship Series.
But like, can she race in the European Series because she's from Slovenia?
Yeah, because she doesn't have a U.S. passport. Or if you're a dual passport holder, I think you have to choose one. Okay. That's how the Olympics are, because we see all the time, even on the United States. I mean, half of our running team are Ethiopians or Kenyans that came into the United States Army under WCAP program and transitioned into the Olympic team without ever serving a day, pretty much in the military besides Fort Carson WCAP. And that's how a lot of the athletes these days have been able to transition from other countries, because as soon as you join the military, you go through 8 weeks of basic training, you get your citizenship, and all of a sudden you're competing for the United States in the Olympics.
How do really skinny Kenyans pass basic training?
Water treatment specialists. That's their MOS. I'm not even kidding. So yeah.
Hang on. So they don't have to do like long rucks?
Not if they're. I mean, through basic training, yeah, you got to do probably like a 12 mile with 35 pounds. I would say that's it.
And how much do they weigh?
Yeah, they weigh almost nothing, I guess. Yeah, 135, 140. But that's not bad. 35 pounds.
They're pretty frail.
They can make up for the endurance.
All right, last question.
Yeah.
Do you acknowledge the sub-2 run with cars and lasers and pacers?
Yeah, I mean, it was in the perfect conditions and the perfect race. And think about it though, like 4:26 pace. Jesus, like I don't know if I could go out and do that for 2 miles. To do it for 26, no matter if you're paced or with lasers or whatever, like that's insane.
But where do we draw the line, though?
I think
that's a lot of help.
I mean, yeah, nobody's gonna get under an hour, so like, it's all good. But it's like, okay, to go back to that analogy, and I'll just do a quick tangent on Sweden, and what I struggled with is the $1 million challenge. There is no human in this world who can do at a minimum 100, much less 105 or 110 on that course with that elevation gain, regardless of the conditions, with the obstacles. So that's when I got frustrated. Is like, everyone's like, oh, there's no limits. This guy broke a 2-hour marathon. Well, let's see him break an hour. Okay.
Right.
That's impossible.
Right.
So it's like the same thing that we've seen in 2 years. Atkins has run 80 miles, arguably. I mean, I believe he is, but I'll say arguably because some other people might not agree. He's the best endurance ultra obstacle course racer in the world. He's proven.
I don't know who would argue with that, but okay, everybody knows that.
People out there who would, trust me.
Listen. You can say you can say who's better, Albin or Atkins in OCR. Period. That's an argument. Who's the best in endurance OCR? That's Atkins. But here's the other thing. Everything you just said, plus the fact that you guys killed yourselves the week before in Greece, it was just stupid. No one was going to come close.
No, but I mean that's our mentality though. I wanted to try. I wanted to see. I wanted to see how long
I
can.
No, of course you did. But I'm saying Joe and Watson are like, oh, it's definitely possible.
No, it is not possible. I will tell you that, like, hands down, it is not possible. So, well, I mean, and that's what got to me is, you feel like you're led on a little bit. And maybe this year, that's why I was saying, maybe I do want to focus and win the ultra. Maybe if I just focused on winning the $1 million and did nothing else, just 3 races. But of course, I'd have to do more than 3 because I got to qualify. But technically, do I got to qualify? Because I'm a world champion. John Alba didn't have to qualify 2 years ago. I'm just throwing it out there.
You know what you should do?
If I didn't have to qualify and I could just train for those 3 races, or I could put in my application. David Watson put up a video. Any athlete who wants to come, fill out an application. You don't have to qualify. You can come to Worlds. I saw the video. Why can't I get thrown that same opportunity and just train for 3 races for the whole year?
Here's what you should do.
I would feel a lot more confident that I could potentially get closer than anyone else to winning the $1 million if I just focused on that one task.
You know what? I'm going to give you a secret. Okay, you ready? I usually don't do this on podcasts, but I'm going to give you a secret. You ready?
Yeah, Matt Davis pro tip. What's up?
If you show up the day or 2 before and you run the course, right?
Classic.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
You in. I'm good to go.
Listen, I think this has been great. I think a lot of people will be interested to hear all that insight about the USAOCR and also just all the various series. We pretty much talk about that stuff, but I just think, if you remember, I had you on 2 years ago just to explain all the series. You remember that?
Oh yeah, there's a lot going on, and yeah, I think it's good to get everyone's perspective. They see a lot of stuff on social media, but when you actually hear someone talk about it and kind of hear their perspective and why.
Speaking of which, I'm going to have to give you an opportunity to respond because there was an accusations. Ryan Woods, who I think is maybe a frenemy of yours at best. You guys seem to have this back and forth a lot. He says, speaking of the Pledge of Allegiance or the anthem, he said that you intentionally stuck your elbow in his face and bumped him for room in the start line corral.
In Sweden or where?
Just different places.
Well, sometimes because I am in the military and we're allowed to salute, I do make sure I have enough room to salute. So I'm not going to jack some, but I don't think I intentionally tried to hit him or anything.
All right. He and Atkins
I have no issues with Ryan Woods, even though, like same thing with Hunter. They want to throw me under the bus and like lash out. But I mean, at the end of the day, when we talk face to face, we hash it out. I wish we could do that like all the time instead of social media drama. Like when I saw him in Greece, he apologized. He's like, I don't know what I was thinking. I misunderstood. Like same thing. Like, but nobody hears that. They only see what was on social media. And I'm a forgiving guy. Like, I'm not going to hold a grudge against people because at the end of the day, it doesn't bother me because I know the facts and I know what's truthful. If it was actually true, then I'd feel bad. But I'm like, it just wasn't that way. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us are like best friends outside of racing. We just see each other at events. We hang out or we don't. We're competitors. But I think there needs to be that camaraderie instead of us all attacking each other because we're never going to have that athlete committee, or we're never going to have that voice as an athlete if we're out there just acting like idiots on social media all the time. That's just me being honest. Like it ruins our credibility to be able to establish ourselves as an athlete. If we all like ganged up and went to Spartan and be like, hey, we want this, they'd probably do that because we're the top athletes. And there's other sports that do that. They don't go to the extent of having like a union, but pretty much, yeah, it's an athlete union. And if we were tight, we actually might get some stuff done. Like, I'm being honest. Like, so, and I've talked to a lot of the pro team members, but some people just can't get over their ego, can't get over competition, and are so opinionated, they will not acknowledge the opinions of others. And there's a few athletes that are just like that.
Well, let's just call a spade a spade. You don't think it's fun that we have like an Aaron Newell in the sport, someone who's just not afraid to say his mind?
Thing, like, people don't understand his personality. Like, he's just a class, like, you have a rule book, the yearbook, and you have like class clown. It's like Aaron Newell. That's just his personality. I don't think he's trying to be disrespectful.
I thought that was me. What am I then? If I don't get to be the class?
Yeah, you're kind of the same thing. You guys. That's why you show Aaron Newell so much, because you guys are like so tight. You're like brothers. But no, I think it is exciting for some people, but you do get to the point where you cross the line, especially if you're questioning someone's integrity, and especially for me, like, it means a lot with my military background, because that is instilled upon us, the values. So I think there's a fine line between a joke and something that's too serious. But yeah, I mean.
But you didn't take offense to him saying you don't have any chest hair, right? That was like clearly a joke, right?
Oh yeah, I don't even know if I saw that post. I don't follow a lot of people, but they told me about it.
Somebody went crazy on Aaron because he made that joke about you.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that want to express themselves behind a computer screen, or what I mean. Like, that's where social media is. Like, there's a negative part and a positive part, and you got to just invest so much and realize that you really need to back off and take a break, or just take everything with a grain of salt. Like, but it's hard because the way your brain operates in flight or flight mode, when you see something like that, it's perceived in your mind. Your primal instinct is an attack. Or if someone else sees it and they're close to you, they subconsciously think you're attacking them. They want to like respond. So I don't know. Like, well,
dude, now you're going deep fucking Manchurian Candidate on me. It's too much. Well, listen. I try not
to take anything too seriously. I guess that's what I'm saying. And it does. I don't know. Like, it's one thing if you're joking or trying to use someone else's popularity to make you more popular, but I don't know what the intentions are. I don't really dig into it that much. I have so much or so little of my time to focus on other people. I've got kids. I've got a job. I'm still doing military work. I'm here with you.
But rivalry and competition.
Like, I don't want to waste my time on thinking about.
But listen. Rivalry and competition is good for sport, right?
Yeah, but on the field, I don't know if it's necessarily like needed so much on social media. But I don't know. And to back up what you say, like, so what I thought was really offensive, and I've given Aaron like so many bones, like, right? Like, how many times do you just keep turning your face to get slapped? Like, he accused me of cheating in Aspen and asked for my Strava so he can look at my segment. I was like, dude, you being serious? Like, he's like, yeah, I want to see it. And that's when I was like, I'll show it to you. I don't have to show it to you, but I want to show it to you just so you feel even worse that I beat you by 25 minutes. And that was essentially what happened. He was like, oh yeah, I was just focused so much on whatever, and Killian was just running his race.
Right. He did admit that, right? So
yeah, exactly. Like, that's fine after the fact, but the fact, some people would find that really offensive and really insulting, and probably be like, F you, I'm never going to talk to you again. But I'm not that guy, but I feel like, how many times can I keep doing that to Aaron,
I hear what you're saying. And what you're saying is, the sting is already there. He's already called you a cheater. Most people see the first headline. They don't see the other headline that says, oh, I called him on it. And he actually, because he did, I thought it was big of Aaron, was like, yeah, he's fucking faster than me. He showed me the segment. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I think it's like I said, none of us are trained professional athletes. Like, I mean, to the extent that we know exactly what's going to happen from each other, what we're going to say to each other, what our relationship. It's all a learning experience. It's all a building process. And, you know, this is the first year Aaron has kind of been on the scene full time. So, yeah, he's just a new guy. And how many of those new guys are we going to get in? I don't know. Like, him and BJ had words. I mean, everyone's having words. It's insane. Like, and it is entertaining. People love this stuff. Why do you think people watch Jerry Springer? Why do you think it's so popular, man? Like, people love drama. So I think it's exciting. I don't know. Like, I look at it as a form of entertainment. I have a laugh, even if it's at my expense sometimes. But that's the spot. That's what you hold when you're in the spotlight. People want they don't realize, like, everyone is looking for you to make that one little mistake. Like, I've done over like probably 100 Spartan races or 100 races, and no one's ever said like, hey man, that was great form on that obstacle, man, you crushed it. You know what I mean? Like, hey, that was a smart idea. Like, they don't care about the 1,000 obstacles. They care about the one out of the 1,000 that was a small penalty, because that's what people like.
Right. All right, dude.
Cool.
Thanks for doing this. Let's do a quick screenshot. I can use it. I think I'm going to put this up today. People are looking for stuff. It's the day before Thanksgiving. I'll put it up today.
Right? Happy holidays. I hope everyone's having fun at home and spending time with their family. That's what it's all about. Araya is going to come over for Thanksgiving, so I'm sure we're going to do a 20-mile run in the snow or whatever the conditions are. So I'm gonna work my turkey off on Friday.
All right. I'm going to do a screenshot, so just stand still for a second. You're not going to smile?
Oh, yeah.
He gave me the military smile, the no teeth smile. All right, let's try this again. Hang on. Because I got my big ORM branding in here. It looks good.
Sweet.
All right, dude. I'll put this up today.
Cool. Yeah, I'll share it or tell people to go watch it. I thought we covered some really good info.
I think so, too. All right, man. Got to jump.